Hello everyone and welcome back to Love English. I'm Sabrah and today we're going to be looking at a very important tip to help you stop sounding underconfident, stop sounding perhaps amateur or insecure. This tip is going to boost how you will speak in professional contexts. You'll sound much more like a leader and it will help you to feel much more confident. Don't forget, for more videos and tips, you can follow us on Instagram, TikTok or Facebook, and also don't forget to subscribe. So without further ado everyone, let's get started. So the first tip, and this is really the most important one, is to stop using filler words. Filler words are things such as like, sort of, kind of, basically, even obviously. These words are overused and they don't actually mean anything when they're used as filler words. So they can make you sound less professional, less confident, and also less well educated. Well-educated people tend not to speak like this because you can sound a little bit, well, like a teenager. I'll give you an example. So we were walking on the beach and we were spending the day there and chilling and yeah, it was sort of like fun. That's okay for a teenager, I suppose. But for somebody in a professional context, that doesn't sound great. So let's look at how we can stop using these words. We're going to look at example sentences and how we can improve these to make them sound more professional. Let's start by looking at the word like. This is probably the most overused one. So let's look at where using like is okay. When we're making a comparison, when we're saying something is similar to something, it's fine to use like. For example here, don't worry about learning to use Excel again. It will be like riding a bicycle. Like riding a bicycle, so we're comparing. That's fine. Let's look at the next example. I was quite anxious to get the project finished on time. What is like doing in that sentence? It actually performs no function, so we can simply remove it. I was anxious about getting the project finished on time. Let's compare them. I was anxious to get the project finished on time. I was anxious to get the project finished on time. Which do you think sounded better? For me, I think the version without like sounds more professional. You're getting to the point more, you don't sound unsure of yourself, you're being direct and concise. So that's an important step towards sounding more professional and more confident, is removing the word like as a filler word. The next filler phrase is sort of or kind of. These get used a lot as filler phrases as well. Let's look at some examples. A person might say, it's a sort of complex issue. Is there a need for sort of there? You could simply say, it's a complex issue. However, if you want to slightly modify this, if you want to make this a little less direct, you could say, I would say it's a complex issue, or it seems to be a complex issue. This is known as hedging language, and it makes something seem a little less direct. So you could say, I would say it's a complex issue. However, being direct is sometimes important in the business world, so it may be okay to simply remove phrases such as sort of and kind of. So if you're using a kind of to talk about types of something, then that is fine. For example, you could say, this is a kind of analysis, this is a kind of computer program, that's fine. However, if you're just saying, it was kind of strange to be here, or I was kind of nervous, all of those are simply filler. And you can remove them. You could say, I would say, or you could say, I was quite nervous, or you could just simply remove them by saying, I was nervous before the presentation, not I was kind of nervous. You know is another filler phrase, which sounds pretty bad as well. Let's have a look at where it's used and how we can remove it. You might hear people saying things like, oh, it was a tough day, or, oh, she's a little sensitive, or, this is something I've been dreaming of for ages. Of course, if you're chatting casually to a friend, it might be okay to slip into this kind of chatter. However, at work, it's much better to be concise, and especially if you're in presentations and meetings, to cut these out. So let's have a look at where we could remove them. It was, a tough day. Instead of saying this, you can simply say, it was a tough day, or you could say, I found it a tough day, or I found it challenging. It was a challenging day. She's, a little sensitive. Here we could simply say, she's a little sensitive, or she's sometimes sensitive. You could use your hedging language if you don't want to be too direct. The next thing we're going to look at are the ums and the ahs and how to reduce them. Have a think now, how much do you think you and ah when you talk? Be honest with yourself. If I'm being really honest, I know sometimes I use too much. So it's something we all need to work on, so we're in it together on this one. Even politicians such as Boris Johnson have been known to use too much.
I think that the best answer I can give. Of course, I've been.
But how does that make the person come across? Well, to my mind, they sound uncertain. They sound like they're thinking of the answer, like they're not sure what to say, which makes me lose faith in them and perhaps think they're not that confident or not that knowledgeable on the subject. So it's much better to try and reduce them if we can. In fact, it's better just to put a pause than to say, it's much better just to pause. Let's have a look at some examples. That's a tough question and needs extra thought. Now I'll try it just with a pause. That's a tough question and needs extra thought. Which one do you think sounded better? Let's have a look at another example. I think the final figure will be approximately 10,000. I think the final figure will be approximately 10,000. So if you need time to think, it's better to simply pause than say or ah. It just makes you sound like you need a moment to think, but you're not verbalizing that with a very obvious sound that shows that you need to think. So have a go at just using a pause and see how that feels. My next tip is to improve your intonation. I've noticed that a lot of people who speak English as a second language tend to have a flatter intonation in English than native speakers have. This might be because you're insecure about your English perhaps, or you're worrying about whether you're saying the right thing, and so you're not putting emphasis on the right parts of the sentence, and you're not bringing your tone downward for emphasis, which is what native speakers do. I've made a whole video on intonation and how to use it to improve your speech, which is just up here. But just in a nutshell now to tell you, English is mostly a downward tone language, so it's a falling tone language. So many of our sentences end with our voice being lowered on the final syllable or the final word. So it's very important to start to mimic that because you'll sound, again, more confident, but you'll also sound more like a native. Now, your language intonation pattern may be different to English, so it's important to know that we mostly have falling tones. However, we have high points in the middle of the sentence. So usually we have somewhere where we go up in the middle and then we will fall down, kind of like a wave. We also put emphasis on key words. We tend to only have an upward tone at the end of sentences when we're asking a yes or no question. And there are a few other things as well, such as tag questions. I'm going to now say a sentence with a falling tone at the end, and where in the middle we have a slight peak. So this is the natural pattern of English intonation. Let's have a look at this. I'm going to organise a meeting where we can discuss the implementation of the new software. I'm going to organise a meeting where we can discuss the implementation of the new software. So to me, that fall at the end shows that you're finished and shows that you've made your point confidently and clearly. If we go up, we start to add in an element of uncertainty. See if you can hear it. I'm going to organise a meeting where we can discuss the implementation of the new software. Let's look at another example. Here are our KPIs for the next month. Here are our KPIs for the next month. Here are our KPIs for the next month. There's something that sounds much more certain and definite about falling at the end. Here are two more sentences that I want you to try and copy with the falling tone. This project could really be a success with some outside-the-box thinking. Could everyone please do their market research for this evening? Now, let's look at some examples of where you could put upward intonation, so on yes or no questions. Is everyone okay with Friday for the meeting? Is everyone okay with Friday for the meeting? Does everyone think this plan is workable? Does everyone think this plan is workable? So you'll hear there's that rise on the last word, and this is where we're asking for interaction. We're asking, does anyone have any thoughts? So we're leaving it open, up in the air, is like inviting other people to speak. But don't forget, you need to have that wave, so you need to peak in the middle and make sure your voice goes up on the key words. We'll look at the key words on a few of our examples. I think this project could be a success with some outside of the box thinking. So success, outside of the box, carry more meaning, so the voice was slightly raised on those. I really think this project could be a success with some outside of the box thinking. Here are our KPIs for the next month. KPIs and next were quite key here, so my voice slightly raised on those. I'm going to organise a work meeting for the implementation of the new software. On a work meeting, again my voice raised, the implementation of the new software, the implementation of the new software. The more you start to listen to English, the more you'll start to hear this intonation pattern of peaks and dips, peaks and falls. And the more you can try and copy that, the better, the more professional and more confident you will sound. Okay everybody, those were my 2 tips for the day. I do hope they help you to sound more confident and more professional in English. Please share any additional tips in the comments below. We'll see you soon on Love English. Bye bye.